In its heyday, the world of games didn't have huge announcement trailers, commercials, or big conferences. There were few commercials announcing a particular game's inbound arrival. In fact, most games were only realized to be available well after they hit store shelves. As the face of gaming evolved, so too did its methods of advertising. Some gamers love hearing the impending release of a game, while others lament it for certain reasons like delays and angst. One thing is for certain, the announcement of games these days made consumers well informed, but in doing so has caused death to that of surprise. This is a look at the ills and woes, the highs and lows. This is the evolution of announcements in gaming. Welcome to Old School Roots, where we dissect retro games and gaming subjects. A show that's half fact, half nostalgia, and all gaming. Join us as we take a trip back to the golden era of gaming. This is Old School Roots. Advertising of games, much like any other medium, has been a staple of the industry. Although advertising of games has been around since gaming's inception, its scope has not always been as big as it is today. In the early 1980s, games had merely no more than commercials near or upon the game's release. In Japan, a lot of games also had special promotions to help sales. By the late 80s, television advertisements and word of mouth were the best way for games to gain notoriety. Games like The Legend of Zelda, Mega Man, and Castlevania benefited the most from the aforementioned methods. Then, in 1988, Nintendo Power, a magazine that provided feature articles, news, previews, and reviews on various video games, debuted, along with other video game publications such as GamePro, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Game Informer. Magazines quickly became the next medium for gaming news. These magazines provided information, news, game hardware, and entertainment for the video game industry. As gaming grew, a bigger form was called upon to help get the word out. These staples came in the form of technological expos or fairs. The Electronic Entertainment Expo, commonly known as E3, is an annual trade fair for the computer and video game industry presented by the Entertainment Software Association, or ESA. It is used by many video game publishers and accessory manufacturers to show off their upcoming games and game-related merchandise. E3 is commonly held in late May or early June of each year at the Los Angeles Convention Center. In 2007, the convention was held from July 11th to July 13th in Santa Monica, California. E3 2013 was held on June 11th to June 13th, 2013, also at the Los Angeles Convention Center. E3 2014 was held from June 9th to June 12th. The Tokyo Game Show, commonly known as TGS, is a video game expo convention held annually in the Mahumesa in Chiba, Japan. It is presented by the Computer Entertainment Suppliers Association and Nikkei Business Publications Incorporated. The main focus of the show is on Japanese games, but some international video game developers use it to showcase upcoming releases and related hardware. The first Tokyo Game Show was held in 1996. From 1996 to 2002, the show was held twice a year, once in the spring and once in autumn, in the Tokyo Big Sight. Since 2002, the show has been held once a year.
Depending on your age, you or your grandparents can tell a story about the first time they saw a VCR or CD player on a dealer's shelf.
The last of these shows include the International CES, or more commonly known as the Consumer Electronics Show. It is an internationally renowned electronics and technological trade show, attracting major companies and industry professionals worldwide. The annual show is held each January at the Las Vegas Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Not open to the public, the Consumer Electronics Association sponsored show typically hosts previews of products and new product announcements. The first CES was held in June 1967 in New York City. It was a spin-off from the Chicago Music Show, which until then had served as the main event for exhibiting consumer electronics. From 1978 to 1994, CES was held twice a year. Once in January in Las Vegas, known as the Winter Consumer Electronics Show, and once in June in Chicago, known as the Summer Consumer Electronics Show. In 1998, the show changed to a once-a-year format with Las Vegas as its primary location. In retrospect, the announcement of any game in the late 80s and early 90s was mostly a surprise to say the least. Kids in North America would mostly see a 30-second spot on television, or be privileged to commercials around the holidays. During the early battles between Nintendo and Sega, one of the best ways to learn about a video game was word of mouth. Meeting on playgrounds, or after school, kids would discuss gaming, where they would recommend certain games to each other. There were no widely announced spotlights on certain games taking place months beforehand as it is today. As a young child who enjoyed gaming, one's scope of hearing about a certain game usually came once it was already available. Game companies usually concentrated on making games instead of announcing to the world their plans to do so. Once a new game was obtained, cartridge-based back then, taking it out of its wrapper, smelling it, and examining it along with the instruction manual almost became ritual. Children spent time enjoying the game, not knowing if there would ever be a sequel. As video game magazines began gaining popularity, so too did developers expressing their intentions for releasing new products. If fortunate enough, one could be privileged to this information with a subscription or buying said publication from a newsstand. Then, word of mouth became even larger, as a friend would bring his or her magazine to school and show it off. At this point, the usual announcement time for expected release of any game was around 4 to 6 months. This meant, as a kid, you could save up enough money in anticipation. Upon most of the popular gaming expos, in conjunction with the growth of the industry announcing a game's release, grew and grew. The advertising of games also expanded. The most notable game to first launch a huge marketing release was Final Fantasy VII.
More than 200 animators and programmers. A multi-million-dollar production. Over 2 years in the making. And a cast of thousands. They said it couldn't be done in a major motion picture. They were right. Final Fantasy VII.
PlayStation.
Many games had big announcements, but Final Fantasy VII dwarfed them all at the time. Soon, the original PlayStation and its groups of games took to this trend to new heights. Games like Metal Gear Solid, Tekken, and Madden NFL Football were all on a multimedia commercial hype train. It was now becoming clear that the announcement of games, along with publicizing them, was going to be a common trend. With gaming becoming popular over the years, it only makes sense that so too would be its scope of advertising. For many, hearing about a game was a good thing. But with every story, there is always two sides. With large-scale announcement come expectations. And when games don't meet their alleged release dates, gamers become enraged. So when delays happen or expectations are dashed, companies can expect a fair amount of backlash from the gaming community. In some cases, some games have been delayed for several years. And in rare cases, due to unforeseen events, some games never release and become nothing more than rumor. One could say it's a nice progression in the gaming community to hear about their favorite or new games approaching release date. But when hopes are dashed, things quickly go sour. With that said, one could look for the companies to blame for these events. The reality is that as a gamer, one's own hopes belong to just that, the one that is hoping. By expecting anything with high hopes, it's only natural that disappointment comes about when not met. Over the years, hearing about an upcoming game has become sort of a natural thing. Something that is tarnished by this fact is surprise. Gone are the days of hearing about your favorite game, which that experience could be likened to a pleasant surprise birthday party. Gone is the playground talk and word of mouth. And with the advent of the internet, gone, so too, is the once popular magazines of yesteryear. Now, all that remains is the ills of hearing about an upcoming game and hoping now that it meets its expected date of arrival. Either way you slice it, announcing a game arrival can be either a great surprise or an ill-fated death. That's it for this episode of Old School Rules. Join us here next time on Gaming So Spectacular when we cover Resident Evil. Thanks for watching, everybody. And as usual, if you can't be good at it. Hey, Spectacular Gamers, if you like this episode, then check out our other episodes. And make sure you tune in every other Friday right here on Gaming So Spectacular for new episodes of Old School Rules.